Ring Lardner, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, Thomas Wolfe, and Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings of the Yearlings all had their books published by Charles Scribner's Sons of New York. Joining their ranks in 1979 with the first novel is an author from Harrison County, West Virginia, Meredith Sue Willis. After graduating from Shinston High School and Barnard College, she obtained a Master's of Fine Arts degree from Columbia University. Sue lives in Brooklyn and teaches creative writing. In 1978, she received a Creative Writing Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. The novel, published by Scribner's, is called A Space Apart, from which she'll now read a short passage.
That's what a family is, she thought. Something that never fulfills its promises and is never satisfied. Something that keeps leaving you, but never leaves you alone. Lee moved away. Lee came home to criticize. Lee went away again. Vera had once thought that she found a family as families should be when she married the Scarlins. She loved John for beauty and Mary Catherine for moral excellence and the old preacher for being perfectly old and demanding. Everything had seemed to be there that she needed. One to love, one to take care of her, one to take care of.
Sue Willis, who are the main characters in A Space Apart?
Well, some of them are mentioned in that passage I just read. There is a family, a minister named John Scarlin, who marries a woman named Vera. There's John Scarlin's sister, Mary Catherine, and the children of John and Vera, who are named Lee and Tony, two daughters. And a kind of offstage, most of the time, character is the father of John and Mary Catherine, who was also a minister, an old fundamentalist preacher.
Does the family name Scarlin have significance?
Gee, no one ever asked me that before. I like the sound of it, and mostly I like the sound of it, but it also has to me, a ring when I think about it of those who have been scarred, scarlings, one who has gone through a lot and had a lot of pain in life, and although these people's lives are quiet lives, they do seem to scar one another and get scarred a lot.
Tell us about the structure of the 10 chapters.
Okay, the way I decided to do it was I had 5 main people, and I wanted to give a chapter to each one of them. And so instead of that, I gave 2 chapters to each one, and they're kind of interlocking. It's always 2 chapters for each person, and they kind of go back and forth depending on what's going on and giving their various points of view of the same events often.
What would be your reaction if someone read the chapters following the individual character rather than reading it straight through? In other words, reading it almost like short stories.
Gee, you're full of original ideas. I like that idea. I'd be perfectly happy if someone wanted to try that. I always, when I write, at some point, do a draft that goes from the beginning to the end. I go through it as if the way a person would read it, because when I read a book, I start at the beginning and go to the end. But it might be legitimate. What made you think of that?
Well, I noticed that one of the chapters of Tony was published as a short story, and I jumped over and read that. And then I read the next one about Tony, and then I backtracked.
You really did it that way.
I did it that way, and it seemed to work.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. That's good to hear.
Well, I'm glad that it'd be all right with you if someone did.
Well, that partly, I think, has to do with the fact that I probably wrote the chapters at various times, and that might, work out that way. But that's very interesting.
Now, what is the setting?
The setting in this novel is a small town named Galatia in West Virginia, which is a fictional town, sort of nestled among the coal mines. It would be a town, in my mind, that would fit very nicely into Harrison County.
Do you think of yourself as a regional writer?
I've thought about that also. I don't. I live in New York now, and so my family is certainly still here in West Virginia, and I come back, and I feel very strong ties to this state, but I think of myself as looking at it from a distance, as far as this novel goes anyway, and I certainly am always conscious of the way a city person might look at this book when they read it, because I have many city friends, and all the time I was writing it, when I was imagining who the potential reader might be, I would think both of a person from my hometown and also a person I knew in the city. I like that tension. I think someday that will be one of my subjects, the tension between the country, a rural area, and the city.
And one of your characters lives in New York.
Yes, there's a daughter named Lee who does something comparable to what I did, which is she leaves shortly after high school and goes to New York, and she wants to be an actress. And that's where, of course, actresses go. And she comes back and has fights with her family, essentially.
How did you arrive at the title, A Space Apart?
Do you want to know the truth?
Yes.
Well, the truth is I didn't arrive at it. My editor did. One of the things about writing is that sometimes a good editor will step in and take charge of things. And I had a title, 5 Galatians, and everybody said, ugh, sounds like 5 Martians or 5 Venusians or something from space. And so my editor and I both gave it some thought, and she suggested A Space Apart.
You used the word space several times throughout.
I do. I believe that's where she probably got it. I mean, she certainly knew the novel very well, and I believe that is probably where she got it.
How did you make the connection with the publishers, Scribner's?
I did the recommended thing by writing schools and writing conferences and whatnot, which was I went to an agent, and I had my book taken on by an agent, and the agent did the day-to-day work of sending it around, and it was an interesting process because she used all her contacts. First, she'd send it to somebody, and they'd say, no, they couldn't take it. One even said they already had a novel about a preacher that year, and they couldn't take on another one. And finally, she sent it to Scribner's, and that's how it happened.
How long did the process take?
It took the better part of a year, and I had a good 7 or 8 rejections before it found a home, and I was pretty discouraged and happy, probably the happiest day of my life when the book was finally taken. Because I have thought of myself as a serious writer for a very long time, and I've had many stories published, and I didn't feel like an amateur. I felt like a writer, and all that I lacked was a book out in the world.
And it is here, and thank you so much, Meredith Sue Willis, for talking to us about A Space Apart.
Thank you.